All right, I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. You can see people are joining us. We're going to start here in just a few minutes. Thank you so much for joining us in this webinar to talk about organizing a volunteer cleanup during COVID-19. We'll be starting here in just a couple of minutes. If you're just joining us, welcome to our volunteer cleanup webinar. It's exciting to see so many people interested in how to safely conduct a cleanup during COVID. All right, we'll be starting here shortly. All right, well, let's go ahead and start. Hi, my name is Sharon Smith. I'm Assistant Director of Public Works. Pardon me. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today as we talk about how to organize a cleanup during COVID-19. J.D. Lane from Metro Beautification Environment Commission, who is the commission coordinator, will be speaking here shortly. But first of all, I just want to thank everybody for joining. I really want to thank Keep America Beautiful, who provided a lot of valuable information that helped us to develop this. I also want to thank TDOT and their Nobody Trashes Tennessee program, as well as Keep Tennessee Beautiful. We couldn't pull this information together without the support of all of our partners, and we really appreciate everything that they do. At this point, I'm going to introduce J.D. Lane. He will be addressing how to safely organize a volunteer cleanup during COVID-19. J.D., you're on.
Thank you, Sharon. Thanks everybody that's watching this at home or wherever you're watching it from. So we're just going to go over how you can safely do a cleanup during this pandemic, and we're also kind of going to go over just general guidelines for cleanup in general, whether there's a pandemic going on or not. So we'll get right into it. Many of you are probably asking the question now, is it okay to volunteer or do a litter pickup? And it's 100% up to you. Over this presentation, I'll probably say this a couple times, but we as in Metro Beautification are not encouraging people to go out and do cleanups. But if you're really wanting to do a cleanup, we're going to go over some of the things that you can do to do it more safely and more effectively. So with that, we'll get right on into it. When you go into planning and or pre-planning for a volunteer cleanup, you just kind of want some things you want to go over. You want to ask yourself, is it really necessary to have a cleanup in this area? Is the litter a lot of issue? Of course, you'll know because it's probably in your neighborhood or real close to it. Another thing you want to ask, is that area going to be safe for volunteers? You want to, more ideal, especially with a lot of volunteers, you want to have, make sure there's not going to be a lot of trafficked area where people going by, speeding by. You want to keep your workers safe, make sure there's a wide shoulder so people are able to get out of the road and still effectively clean up litter. And then you want to determine what supplies you're going to need to do that cleanup. Now, Metro Beautification will offer you the bags, gloves, and safety vests for you to use for that cleanup. And depending on the size of the group, we might give you 1 or 2 litter grabbers. But that's, and if there's anything else you're going to need as far as like supply of water or anything like that, you just want to kind of figure out what supplies you're going to need. On the day of your cleanup, you're going to do a couple things. You want to have your volunteer waivers for everybody to sign. Metro Beautification, we provide you those waivers for you to have all your volunteers sign before they do the cleanup. One other thing we suggest is have name tags, especially if you're going to have a group that you're not really familiar with some of the people as much. If it's not a family, like if it's a big church group or something like that, you want to get name tags. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just get a piece of duct tape and a magic marker and write somebody's name. It's good to have it on the front or the back. So, for example, when you're doing a cleanup walking down the street, if you see somebody in front of you that's you want to get their attention, whether they're doing something they're not supposed to be doing, whether they're in the middle or too far in the road or something like that, you know how to identify them. before you do your cleanup, you're going to do a volunteer orientation, and the orientation pretty much means you're kind of going to be going over all the safety guidelines uh, uh, of the day and kind of give them a rundown of what's going on. If you're having a large event, which we do not encourage this time, you may even want to organize your volunteers into certain groups and have like team leaders. But again, we're not encouraging a large volunteer group at all. But it's also, whenever you've got to do a cleanup, especially if you have, multiple people, you might want to organize and deploy people in different directions. Send this small group this way, send this group the other way. It's depending on the size of the street. You don't want to have a big group of people just going one way down the street. It's better to have an organized way to do it and keep people safe and out of the road as much as possible. And this next slide is going over kind of stuff that should have been going down, or stuff that you should have been doing. If you're doing a cleanup before now, this stuff you should already been doing. There should not be nothing, new and groundbreaking here. You want to always be sure you and all your volunteers are wearing closed-toed shoes, so you don't drop anything on your feet and cause injury. Of course, be wearing safety vests at all times, gloves. Stay out of the road. It's kind of common sense, but have to say that for sure. Keep an eye out for any other hazards, like if it's I know sometimes roads there's like a big drop off or something. Just keep an eye out for that or anything else in the road that could potentially be hazardous. Don't overdo it, especially at this time. It's real hot outside. If you see a big pile of tires, don't try to be the hero and pick them all up by yourself. Get some other volunteers to help you. And also, with it being this time of year, stay hydrated. Of course, the best thing to do is have single use like water bottles and things like that. But if you are going to use a water cooler with a spigot, be sure you are there to sanitize that. But I'm going to more so encourage like the single use water bottles or something like that. Now we're going to try to get into other things that we can do a little more in depth because of the pandemic and the COVID. Right now, don't over recruit, and don't ever do this, but don't over recruit volunteers. If you're only doing a 4-block stretch, there's no reason for you to get 200 volunteers to come out and do that. That's good that many people are wanting to volunteer, but it's just not necessary to get that job done. If you do have, a good number of volunteers, you might even want to stagger their start times. Not everybody, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier, having groups go different ways, and especially at different times. That way everybody's not piled up on top of each other doing, picking litter up. One other thing that we're suggesting people do when they're signing their waivers, have multiple pens out there, but after they get done using that pen, have them put it in a different glass, and then you can sanitize those pens later. That way not everybody's using the same pens and potentially spreading germs. And like I said, be sure to go over all the pandemic guidelines, which we're going to get into in these next couple slides. You also want to go through your volunteers and let them know that if they're sick, they don't need to be working, or if they've been exposed to somebody that's sick, or if they're having any other kind of health issues. And this not even really pertaining to the COVID, just anything. If somebody's not feeling well or not feeling up to it, encouraging them. If you don't feel good, stay at home. And it's not going to be a big deal. There'll be plenty more volunteer cleanups, I'm sure, and nobody's going to hold it against you if you don't want to do this one because you don't feel comfortable or feel healthy enough to do it. One thing you're going to want to go over is the symptoms of the COVID. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this because I'm sure everybody has, over these last couple months, everybody's seen these enough. They know them almost by heart, but here's a list of them right here, and we got this from the CDC website. If you or the volunteers are saying they have some of these symptoms, they do not need to work. Even if it's just, it may not be COVID, it may just be, they might have a bad allergy or something like that, but still it's not worth the risk. And if you have any doubt, don't volunteer. Like I said, it's not going to be a big deal right now. If you want to postpone the cleanup a couple weeks, or if you want to wait and volunteer on the next cleanup that comes through, it's not going to be a big deal. Please, like I said, as Metro Beautification, we are not encouraging people to get out there and do cleanups. Now I'm going to go over some additional guidelines, stuff that we're wanting people to do now because of the pandemic. We're wanting all the volunteers to wear a mask or some type of face covering. It don't have to be like the heavy duty masks like you get from Home Depot, the ones that are, I think they're kind of hard to come by now, but any type of cloth face covering would work. Just as something to keep from spreading the germs that way. You need to remind the volunteers to not touch their face. I think this is kind of one of the ones that should be common sense, but if you're out there picking up trash, don't go, don't start touching your face. Don't pick your nose, whether you're wearing gloves or whatever you're doing. Just don't touch your face at all, especially because you're going to be exposed to a bunch of stuff picking up the litter. Encourage or physical distancing when you're out there doing the cleanup. Now, obviously, if you're doing the cleanup with your family, you've been with them for the past 3 or 4 months, so you've already been around them. But if it's like a small church group or some people that you hadn't probably seen in a month or so, stay 6 feet apart, and this cleanup can still be effective. Frequent hand washing or sanitizing. I know we don't expect people to set up mobile hand washing stations or something like that, but I mean, if it's in your neighborhood and you need to wash your hands at somebody's house or the church you are meeting at, we encourage to do that, and always at least try to hand sanitize. And one other thing, and this is kind of should have been already doing this, but now especially, try to minimize direct contact with the litter. Maybe you should at least be wearing gloves. If you have a litter grabber, use it, but at least be wearing gloves for sure. And if you do have to touch it, just be sure as soon as you get done touching it, you sanitize or wash your hands somehow or another. Also, one thing that's really been aggravating me lately is the littered PPE, which is like littered mask and gloves. If you ever see this littered on your road when you're cleaning it up, always assume it's contaminated. Even if always treat it like it's been contaminated, and treat it like the other litter. Don't make any physical contact with it. Try to use gloves, litter grabber. Some people use old kitchen tongs, just whatever you can do to safely pick it up. If you don't feel comfortable picking it up, that's fine, because it could be labeled as hazardous material. Just contact us and we'll get someone from Public Works to go out there and pick it up and properly dispose of it. If you're using single-use gloves or something like that, be sure you're putting them away in your trash bag, dispose of them properly. And if you, like I said again, if you don't have gloves, just as soon as you throw it away, sanitize your hands, and then don't touch your face. Don't pick your nose after you pick up the PPE. Not trying to be funny, but it's just one way to kind of make it a little bit comical. One important thing too is do not place the rubber gloves in a recycle bin. They are not recyclable. And again, wash or sanitize your hands. I think I'll say that a bunch throughout this presentation too. Wash and keep your hands clean as much as possible. Now I'm going to go over a couple things you can do after the cleanup. Secure all your collected materials. Obviously, you're probably going to be putting all these litter in bags. Be sure you got everything in the bags tied down good where it can't spill out and be littered again. If you used certain litter supply, like if you use litter grabbers, vest, disinfect all that. Spray disinfectant on the litter grabbers. If the gloves are reusable, wash them. Wash the safety vest. Wash them in the washer and dryer when you get home if you want. And again, wash and sanitize your hands after the cleanup. I think this is probably big because most places when they have a cleanup, there's another meeting point they meet up at after the cleanup, like a church or community building. Go in there and wash your hands, get cleaned up real good. Because even if you've been sanitized, it's not going to hurt to wash up again. I don't think you can overwash your hands in certain situations like this. And at this time, some people, when they have a cleanup, they'll have a little get together afterwards, have a party. Don't do that right now. We're just trying to keep this groups of people down as much as possible, and just don't have a party. You want to appreciate everybody that come to clean up, but maybe you can have like a big online Zoom meeting or something later and tell them how much, or just shoot out an email to all the volunteers and tell them how much you appreciate them helping you. This next slide kind of goes over it, kind of self-explanatory. It goes over how to properly take off the rubber gloves. One thing, misconception, I think people think once you wear rubber gloves, you're just immune to everything. Well, wearing the rubber gloves, it's nice and it keeps your hands safe. But like if you're going to pick up the litter with your rubber glove and then you're going to throw it in the bag and then you go wipe your eye, pick your nose, stick it, it's no good. It's just as dirty as you might as well just use your hand. So just want to remind people, if you are wearing gloves, to minimize your contact with everything else because it's just contaminating it then going forward. But you can see the steps on the slide of how to properly remove your gloves. And again, last one there, wash your hands. One more thing to go over, you want to go through a post-event checklist. Thank your volunteers. Most of the cleanups happen on Saturdays, so these people have took time out of their Saturday to come help volunteer, do the cleanup. Provide trash bags so they can throw all their PPE they was wearing away, throw their gloves, their anything they was using to be disposed of. Be sure they have a way they can throw that. Make sure in some instances, Metro Beautification, after you get done with your cleanup, will if you're not able to haul your bags off, we'll come get them the next day or the fall. Like if you do a cleanup on a Saturday, we'll come get your bags that Monday morning. But you have to make sure they're staged up in an easy area, easy for our guys to come out there and see and get and collect. Also, be sure to clean up your staging area. For instance, church parking lot or something like that. You know, you just spent the past hour cleaning up that road. But now, make sure you clean up that church parking lot that they let you use and keep that clean. Also, pat yourself on the back. You organize successful and safe cleanup. So, pat yourself on the back and remember that Metro Beautification appreciates what you've done that day. And just remember, throughout this slide, I think this will be the last time I say it, I promise. We're not in no way encouraging you to go out there and do cleanups, but they still can be conducted, but you have to be safe and stay safe and sanitize. And I think that's everything, and we'll go into the questions part.
All right, JD, we have some questions. Really good question that came in is, how do we know if an area is a TDOT area, and are those still off limits for cleanups?
If you ever have a question, you can always contact us. Of course, most interstates are always TDOT, and some of your main state routes, like it'll say state route. But if you ever have a question, just contact us and we can let you know. I know there is some state routes that people have done cleanups on before, but state routes are typically a lot more busy too, so we don't want to encourage you to go out there on that busy state route. But then some of them state routes also have sidewalks where people can stay on the road. So my suggestion would be just call us and we can advise you on how to go about that.
Yeah, I think that's really good, JD. And keep in mind, a lot of the state routes are just not safe for volunteers. They have high speeds. And but you do have some routes that a lot of times people don't think of, that cut right through parts of neighborhoods and could be perfectly fine. But
Right.
yeah, we can look up and let you know if it's a metro route or a state route, and if it's a good place for a volunteer cleanup.
Well, like
All right.
Murfreesboro Road comes to mind. It's got sidewalks there, so it could possibly potentially be okay. But like I said, when in doubt, just contact us.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, here. Let's see, I had another question. Previously we could request pickup for litter grabbers, vests, tools, etc. Is this process still intact amid COVID?
Well, right now we are not giving out the litter grabbers just because of limited supply. We're just doing the bags, gloves, and the vest. And used to, we would have people bring back what they didn't use or bring back their vest, and now we're telling everybody just to keep it and hold on to it for now.
All right, we have another question of, how do people get waivers?
You can contact us at our office and we'll provide them. They're also, I think they're on the website too, but we can get them waivers to you, no problem.
Yeah, and one thing that we can do is, and I believe we do this already, is just to make sure that waivers are included with any items that people come to pick up.
Right.
All right, here's another great question. Is there an age limit for waivers? And I will take that. We do. We don't necessarily have an age limit, but on our waiver form, a parent would have to sign if the individual was under 18. And now are there questions in the Q&A, Jen?
Yes,
good.
we've got a couple more questions. Do we pick up separated recycling?
Some groups will have done that in the past. I guess if they have, because most groups do that, they already have done that in the past. They've already separated and they take them to the convenience center or recycle and drop off themselves.
Yes. I don't know that we have ever had a direct request for coming out and picking up recycling, because we do encourage, we have 14 different areas around Davidson County that people can take recyclables. So we sort of encourage the groups to take those recyclables. The problem with being left out overnight and multiple days, so if the cleanup's on Saturday and JD's crews are going out on Monday, they could get contaminated during that time. So it really is best practice to have those taken to a recycling drop-off that day.
Okay,
And
we've got another.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Another question, do we take or recycle tires that groups find?
Generally speaking, yes. All tires in Nashville and Davidson County, in fact, I believe all Tennessee counties are recycled, and Metro has a contractor that accepts the tires. If there are 1 or 2 tires mixed in with a lot of debris, a lot of times we don't see them. They may not make it, but if tires are separated, it makes it a lot easier for us to pick up.
And one last question in the Q&A, can we have sanitizers with our supplies?
If we can get it. JD, I think we have some hand sanitizer, don't we?
We do have some, and I think there's been talks about maybe getting it through a grant or something like that. But if we have it, we could give it out. But that's no guaranteed thing for sure.
Yeah, and we have actually applied for a grant that would help with some of these supplies. But right now the sort of the supply of them is not what it used to be. I want to take a moment here and introduce somebody who happens to be on this call that I am super excited about. Metro Beautification is a Keep America Beautiful affiliate. So we have been a member of Keep America Beautiful for many, many years, and have, obviously benefited hugely. A lot of the information that was shared about how to do a cleanup during COVID came from information that Keep America Beautiful sent out to affiliates. And with us on the call today is April, the Director of Training and the Keep America Beautiful National Conference. And April, I am just, I have unmuted you, and April's going to share what other affiliates across the country are doing during this time as well.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it. JD, that was a great webinar. I found it to be really helpful and supportive of some of the work that we've been putting out and some of the materials and resources that we've been putting out. So thank you for the shout out at the very beginning. I learned a few things today, and I wanted to say I really appreciate all the work that our affiliates are doing across the nation to keep our volunteers safe, to keep your volunteers safe, and your communities continue to be engaged in the work that you're doing. We're looking for all kinds of opportunities to tell your stories as well. So, we do have semi-weekly, every other week webinar series. So I encourage you, especially the Keep America Beautiful affiliates on the line, and would be happy to share some resources and tools with others as well. But the dashboard is a great way to pull down some of those resources. And for those who are not affiliates, KAB.org also has COVID-19 resources as well. Many of the tools and recommendations that we're finding from the network are available to anyone who's trying to engage their community and clean up events and do it safely. So I encourage you to check out KAB.org, and as well as the dashboard if you are able to do that. I shared with Sharon, also the link to our webinar from last week, we had Kathleen Gibby from Keep the Tennessee River Beautiful on that call to talk a little bit about some of the partnerships she's made with other nonprofits in her community to help do the work to clean up the Tennessee River, as well as for those of you who might have some other water resources in your local communities. There was some feedback from Pensacola, our affiliate in Pensacola, Florida, who also did a beach cleanup. So, you know, I just want to say, I know that everyone is doing the best that they can. I know that some communities are just not open or ready to have volunteers out there, but every bit of advice that JD gave at the beginning about keeping your volunteers safe and encouraged is so important. You know, one other resource that was on that webinar last week was that our affiliate in Indianapolis did a survey kind of asking her community what they would need to feel safe. So again, at the beginning of this webinar, JD outlined all of those things that others are considering for the safety of their families, for themselves, and for their communities. So if you have, you know, if you have any questions, your regional director is Grace Keegan, who can always, you know, is always available via email, and myself as well. So, so yeah, thank you for allowing me to sit on this. I really appreciate it. You did a great job, and I feel really strongly that your recommendations are exactly what are going to keep, you know, our communities safe in this time.
Thank you so much, April. And I have shared the title and the link of the webinar, which was great. I sat in on part of it. I wasn't able to make the whole thing. And it just seems like every couple of weeks, Keep America Beautiful has a interesting webinar coming up next week. I just signed up for it today as one on using social media during COVID. I think it's really good to have Keep America Beautiful and Keep Tennessee Beautiful out there trying to help us get good information out, good helpful information out to everyone. So April, thank you so very much. We really appreciate it.
Sure, thanks for that plug. I had it in the back of my mind to do the plug, so I appreciate that you did it for us. The next one that's going to come up in July is also an opportunity for one of my friends and colleagues is doing like how to schmooze virtually in virtual, you know, in this virtual world that we are. I know that's like a Northeastern kind of expression, but she presented in Baltimore last year and will do a great job as well. So if you have, you know, some needs as well, some thoughts about what would help you do your jobs, by all means, you know, give Grace or myself a shout and we'll find a resource to provide. So thank you again for that.
All right, and I'm also going to share next week's webinar link with everyone on this call, because this is really great information. All right, thank you. Jen, do we have any other questions out there?
We do have a few other questions that came in. One, I understand that we're not dispensing litter grabbers, but what about shears, weeding tools, spades, or tools used to clean grass, weeds out of sidewalk crevices?
So we're not really handing, you know, we do have a tool share program that Metro Beautification has had for years. It's very widely used. Right now, we're not handing out any tools for use, because we're those tools are sort of managed by the Public Works warehouse, and at Public Works, our staff are really focused on the essential services that we have to provide. So checking those out, checking them back in, making sure they're clean is not something that we can do just as yet, but we're really hoping that we will be able to in the coming weeks. As many of you know, Nashville is still in phase 2 with you know, a sort of upward trend of cases. So we are being a little cautious on what we check out or allow people to check out right now.
And we have one last question. Are there also other products like tires that should be separated out for recycling or for reclaiming?
That's a good question. What do you see out there, JD, besides tires? I mean, Miriam brought up mattresses. I believe it was Miriam. You know, the mattress can be thrown out if it's in recyclable condition. It can be taken to Springback Recycling. They do charge a fee. The question was, does the sheriff's office pick those up? And I'm afraid we'd have to defer to the sheriff's office on that. But do you see
Yeah.
any other weird stuff out there, JD?
That tires is only the main thing I can think of. I can't think of anything else. Tires is it, I think. There's nothing else I can see that just comes to mind right off.
Yeah, I can't think of anything either.
Like I said, in the mattress, that could be one of the things. If if y'all don't, if the group don't feel comfortable picking it up or anything, they could, just let somebody on beautification staff know, and we can get somebody else out there to pick it up. Like I said, I don't really know about the sheriff's department, what they can do, but we could go out there, because mattress, especially if it's been sitting there a while, it could be heavy. And again, one of the things I went over is that we don't want people, don't overexert yourself or hurt yourself trying to load a mattress in the back of a truck or something like that.
Yeah. Right. I am trying to find the link for that social media training. And I have not found it yet. I apologize to everyone. Any other questions before we let people? Oh, a question is, will we be able to share the presentation? And I think we can.
I think
Jen,
we
what
can.
do we plan to do?
So we're going to post this. It might take a couple of days, but we're going to post the video of this recording online at, I believe, on either stoplitter.nashville.gov or Adopt a Street. JD, I'm not sure which one we're going to do, but what we'll do is we will make sure to send you all a follow-up email that will have an attachment of all the slides that you saw today, and then also a link to the page that we're going to post the recording to. So you'll have all of that for you in an email that you'll get tomorrow.
And then I think we'll also do this again here in a few weeks, maybe do it like an afternoon slot, so the people that maybe are at work right now and haven't got a chance to, give them a chance to sit in on it.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Sometime in the maybe late afternoon, and depending on what we hear back, we may try and do it on a weekend as well. We really want to get the word out to as many people as possible, because this is an important area to be careful about. We want to make sure that people that are out there doing volunteer cleanups, especially our Adopt a Street people that are out there pretty regularly, are aware of what's safe and how to stay safe during this really, unusual time. And we are happy to do more and share with as many people as possible. So this time, Jen, unless you see something else, I think we are at it. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you so much for allowing us to share a little bit of safety information with you, a little bit of information on just what to keep in mind. And I appreciate all of your efforts in supporting not just litter cleanups, but also supporting the great work that's done every day by volunteers like you in the community. You are appreciated, and we really thank you for everything you've done. At this point, we say goodbye.